I guess I in many ways feel like a writing artist, not an author. I came to writing through making art. I'm educated an artist. I had my ambition as being a visual artist. But at one point I was kind of disappointed with the whole art thing and the system and the institutional stuff. So I kind of decided to quit, basically, or to lay it down. But I still had a surplus of ideas and motivations and stuff, and that sort of forced itself through in writing. So I actually kind of had my debut in Norway as a writer before I even started exhibiting. But I also always considered myself being an artist. And then through writing I was sort of invited back into visual arts, because these art types, they wanted to see what kind of art this writer made, My writing became I guess a ventilation for my frustrations a bit on the art scene. There was a lot of thematics that I was interested in while studying art and stuff like that. But as soon as I understood what kind of institutional system this was, it didn't seem like the right place. It seemed like in my youthful mind then, some kind of charade or something. But there were themes and thematics, and I was interested, and I sort of just fictionalized or made a narrative out of a bunch of ideas that I had, and that became my first novel. So it was actually it was a little bit like a take on my frustrations of being on the art scene, but it was also sort of bigger than that. It was about building characters and sort of drawing up some kind of world. And I guess what I found in writing, which is at least for me, a pretty solitary practice, is this process of just creating a world like I did when I was drawing, because I came to visual arts through drawing and making pictures sort of with my hands, and I guess writing was a bit similar, and I could sit alone and do that and just build up something from nothing, I've been talking sometimes about how to decide whether an idea should become literature or visual art, and back in the day I thought the divide was very clear and very easy. I thought this is clearly verbal, this is clearly visual. But throughout the years and now, by picking up writing again after a 10-year break, and I'm trying to drill into this problematic, I think that it's actually, if you really think about it, it's really hard to decide whether an idea is like a visual or a verbal spark. It's very often very, very similar, and I can't really, in many cases, I can't really divide it anymore. There's an element of vandalism, quote unquote, in my works. I guess they are describing, they're seemingly aggressive and violent and stuff, but I always said that vandalism is kind of the posture of the weak. It's an act of desperation, and it's sort of a furthering or a handing down of another violence. So it's an aggressive and powerful answer given by someone in a weak position. So I guess this is a recurring theme for me. My found objects are often, or at least back in the day, they were often mass-produced objects, serial objects, and I've made a series that has been shown quite a bit with lockers or filing cabinets and stuff like that being crushed together. And the initial idea for this series was to take these serial objects and destroy them into uniqueness in a way. So I would actually make a I would actually make a creative gesture by destroying them as usable objects. So it was a way of trying to make them unique, actually. I think if you look at my earlier books, which were like hectic and violent and just straight out provocative and stuff like that, they were always about trying to localize the antagonist, or trying to answer what is antagonism. And I think this is a theme that has run throughout my whole practice, and it still does. So even though my latest book is calmer and seemingly more bourgeois in a way, it still has this theme of the antagonist, you know. It's all about droning around in this grand European cafe trying to find out who's actually the antagonist in this situation. What I learned from the art scene is that you can take anything in your surroundings and make it into art. So I have like no scruples with bringing anything in, and I kind of brought this credo also into writing. So I'm very often copying, stealing text, sampling, just stealing from other writers and putting it into my own text and not crediting the authors. So people who are aware, or I mean close readers, they will find tons of other text baked into my text and just stolen. Like 8-10 years ago, I made a series of smaller texts that were based on my Google searches. Back on my old Windows machine, you could pull out your old Google searches, just the words that you had been searching. And one day, when I was not sort of aware of having searched for images and stuff like that all day, I looked at this list of search words, and they looked like some kind of poem, I guess, some kind of concrete poem. And I printed it, and I thought that this is actually a perfect poem for me, because it's just me unconsciously going through lists of words that I want to see as pictures, actually. So yeah, that became my series of search poems. Back in 2008, I think I made a work called Book Sculpture. And it was simply me going into Dijkman's library in Oslo and tearing out the books from 2 long shelves and leaving them on the floor. This was done in cooperation with the library, so it was a very controlled kind of vandalism, but it wasn't stated as being a sculpture. So people came in to the library, and they could still borrow the books in the piles, so they could dig through the piles. So it was actually just like a rearranging of the library system. I'd seen quite a lot of pictures of libraries after fires or disasters and stuff like that, and I always found that when books are thrown on the floor or books are falling out of the shelves, it's actually a very iconic or sort of deep image of like a system collapse. And it has a very physical element to it. People don't like to see books out of order. So I actually wanted to take this feeling and recreate it as a sculptural presence. I did a sculpture of a tanker in Miami once, and it's not any tanker. It's the tanker from Steven Spielberg's debut movie called Duel, if you have seen that one. It's his first film. It was made for television, and then it became popular, and it was more like a drive-in sort of film. The movie is about a guy who drives to work, and for some reason a tanker starts following him, and the whole movie is just him trying to get away, but he can't get away. So I've been interested in this movie. I researched it. I found out that there's like a truck driver and a truck collector in North Carolina who owned the last surviving of the tankers that I used filming this movie. I called him up. He said he could rent it out. He had an even bigger truck that he put the truck on top of and drove down to Miami, and we rolled it out in the park like this, and it was standing there as a sculpture for a week. My interest in this was sculptural, of course. I wanted to thematize, you know, the object as a villain in a way, and the theme of transportation, circulation has also been a thing that I've been dealing with. So this Spielberg tanker kind of gathered a lot of threads in my work thematically. It was also one of the first movies I can remember seeing, and totally the first horror movie. And this had to be the late 70s maybe. There was no VCRs and stuff like that. So, but my friend's dad, he was a truck driver, and he had like a 16mm projector, and he had this movie. So he projected it on his living room wall, and it made a huge impression on me, and it was probably one of my first sort of artistic experiences. So when I found this truck in the States, it was a no-brainer. I also wanted to see it myself. I mean, a truck that's part like horror villain, part sculpture, and part celebrity. I mean, it's a celebrity truck. And I've seen the film again a couple of times after that, and it's really a small masterpiece. This film. My plan for a work or a book is different from how a work or a book is being perceived. I can't control my work in the receptive area. I go through with my plan. I'm always being surprised as I go, so the works are never ending up in the way I decided, even though my principles can be pretty strict. And the reception is another story. I can never control that. So it's just up for grabs, I guess. It's hard to look at one's own work from the outside and try to see just neutrally how would I react to a work like this if I was presented for it and never having seen it before. That's almost impossible. But you can sort of look up your own work after a few years and maybe get a clearer idea of how this was coming across. Because when you make the work, you're very, very invested in it. You know, you're literally knee deep in plaster and concrete and metal, or you know, editing or copy editing and stuff like that. And you're kind of blind. So what I do is that I sort of I have to trust the first impulse I have to make the work. If I get an idea at one time and this idea sort of blasts away all other ideas, and I think within the first 10 minutes that I'm going to go for this, then it's probably some kind of something in there worth taking care of and worth building out and worth going through the effort of making the work. Questions like art's function in society, I feel often they tend to become too big, and I'm sort of trying when I make art or write myself, I'm trying to focus on the stuff in front of me. And then if I think if I do that well, then the bigger things will take care of themselves. I don't have a program for how my work is supposed to work. I only know that art and writing has been important for me. You know, the stuff that has come my way has really yeah, been important for me and shaped my life. And if I can do something like that the other way, I mean, that's it, I guess.